pretty sure this bird over here is trying to start shit with me. And today's Gabriel's birthday. I also finally finished reading King Sorrow, and I love this book. Come on in. Let's talk about it.
Hey, everybody. Good morning to you all from the Sunnyvale Reject here in beautiful early morning West Palm Beach. Now, I know on this channel I've threatened many times to talk about King Sorrow by Joe Hill, and today is the day. I finally finished it, and this is an amazing book. I loved it, and I can see myself reading it again down the road. It was that good. Now, for those of you who don't know who Joe Hill is, he's Stephen King's son, of course. This is his fifth book. He wrote Horns, Nosferatu, The Fireman, Heart Shaped Box, and 20th Century Ghosts, which was a phenomenal short story collection. And to add some context to the novel as you're reading it, check out This Is Horror's podcast, number 643, starring Joe Hill. He talks a lot about this book. It's amazing. It's a great podcast. And you'll walk away really knowing a lot about him and Stephen King and a lot more about the conception of this book. If I had to say, I think this book is about consequences and redemption. And I rate it at a 5 out of 5 stars. And let me tell you why. So, the novel King Sorrow primarily follows 6 characters, and they're all critical to the story. We've got Arthur, Gwen, Colin, Allie, Donovan, and Donna. And Donovan and Donna are twins, and they all come from really diverse backgrounds, economically, ethnically, you name it. They're very, very diverse. But this group of friends is close from the beginning. This book takes place over about 30 years. And so these characters grow, they love each other, and you get to grow with them, which is fantastic. But what really happens is they're all at Rackham College, Maine. Good friends, right? The Nightswander family is full of riffraffs, and Arthur, who's our primary character in the beginning, he's the one that Joe Hill focuses on, or let's just say the stories, because sometimes Joe Hill lets his characters just have a life of their own. But the story follows Arthur in the beginning, and his mother is an activist priest, and she's in jail, right? She's incarcerated with the Nightswander's mother. These riffraffs, you'll come to know and hate them, maybe feel for one of them. But anyway, they are threatening Arthur's mother in prison, and they say, we need $60,000 or your mom's going to bite the dust. This is protection money. So, Arthur's broke, and, he's working at the library in the college, and he's like, what can I do? So they come up with a scheme for Arthur to steal rare books, and he gives them to the Nightswander chick, and she sells them. And I guess she sends the money to her mom in prison or whatever. But they've got a scheme worked out, and this goes on for a while. And Arthur, he loves books. He's a scholar. He can't stand this, and it's just driving him crazy. So they come up with a scheme after finding a way to summon a dragon, King Sorrow, from the depths of the long dark. At first, having a dragon to do your bidding sounds amazing, but there's a catch. There's always a catch. Every Easter, this group has to find a sacrifice, a meal, a feast. Speaking of feast, that was my stomach, for King Sorrow. And if King Sorrow doesn't get his sacrifice or his feast, he's going to take one of them. Arthur, Gwen, Donna, Allie, he's going to eat one of them. So they have to find people to sacrifice every Easter. Now, this is, they're conscience bound, all of them, seemingly. And so this is a very, very tough decision. When they saw what happened to the Nightswanders, because that was the first group that they exterminated, it made them feel real bad, and they knew that they'd made a mistake because, like I said, they're conscience bound, and they just wanted to be left alone. But they made a deal with the devil, so to speak, and so they have to choose somebody, right? Well, they're worried, they're scared, they're going to make the wrong choice. And let's say, for example, there's a person on an airplane, and that day he's on the airplane and he's to be exterminated. Everybody on that damn airplane is going to die. And there's a scene like that with damn, I think it's Donovan and Donna, I think, but it's a great scene. And you see what great lengths they go to avert these mass killings. And I think that's where the redemption comes in. They're suffering, but they'd rather sacrifice themselves ultimately than have innocent people hurt. But there's a great scene. For example, they're talking about Iraq, right? Iraq and the first war there. And they say that they had some intel because, like I said, this book goes on for like 30 years. So this is during that, that Desert Storm era. And they get some intel that Al Qaeda has infiltrated Iraq and is doing horrible things, right? So they have King Sorrow swoop in, and he's responsible for all the destruction and death there in Iraq. And then they find out that their intel was wrong, and so once again, they're devastated that they made a wrong choice. So they go to great lengths to avert these killings. There's also some really clever passages in this book that hit the nail on the head when it comes to some things that I've considered myself. Like, we are deep, balls deep in the era of smartphones, and everybody's taking pictures and there's videos everywhere. You go to a concert and people are looking through their phone at the event. And that's not how I grew up. People may have had their cigarette lighters in their hands or something like that, but they watched the show with their own eyes. And on 617, there's a passage in this book that addresses that very subject, and I couldn't believe it. I thought I was the only one. So I'd like to read this to you and then add a little commentary at the end. But have you ever thought about this? They're at a waterfall at a place called St. Nectans, and author's looking at it, and he's just amazed. And here, listen, just listen. Colin nodded. As they were walking back, it crossed Colin's mind that he had forgotten to look himself, had only seen the waterfall through the image on his phone's screen. But then he reflected. It was more interesting on the screen. The light on his Ericsson was brighter and sharper than the light of the natural world, much like peering through the surrealist's glass. Reality became more vivid and interesting viewed through the intermediary of the cell phone, pardon me. Also, for Arthur, the moment was already over, but for Colin, the moment was now his forever, captured like one of his grandfather's butterflies, held to the velvet by a silver pen and lovingly embalmed. It had not it did not matter a butterfly had to be dead to be kept that way. In a sense, when they were preserved and mounted and displayed behind glass, they had really been made eternal. Life was no way to live. It was always over. Far too short. Or too soon, excuse me. That's an interesting passage because I know a lot of people believe that when they're looking through their phone at something, they're still seeing the phone through an artificial reality. It's not real. It's a digital device there. It's not real. And the phone becomes part of what you're viewing. I just thought that was very interesting. How do you feel about that? When I was reading that passage there, you heard Joe Hill mention the surrealist glass. On that podcast, you're going to hear him say that he uses a lot of material from books that he wrote that were not published. Like, the setting in the beginning of the book King Sorrow is called The Briars, right? Well, The Briars was a title of an unpublished book that he wrote. And the surrealist glass, that comes from another novel too. So he gets to reuse this material. And, growing up Stephen King's son, he was a big King fan and he lived in the household. So he came in constant contact with King and his material and his way of living, which created a lot of the books and went into the books. But he also, on that podcast, lists three other important influences. And I think it's important for you to know too, because if you like Joe Hill's work and you've read all of it, then go back and read his influences, who are Tom Savini. Remember, Joe Hill was Billy, the kid with the voodoo doll on Creepshow, and Tom Savini, that was made in Pittsburgh in 1981. And Savini was I guess, the special effects guy, and he would sit there and watch him, turn beautiful actors into monsters. And he thought that was really cool. And he said Tom Savini always treated him like an adult. And also Richard Matheson and Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury is amazing. Philip K. Dick said once that I think he was teaching at a college in California, somewhere in, I can't remember. I'd be lying if I said anything. But he said that he was a campus figure, but somewhat overshadowed by Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury was the master. And you will see some of Something Wicked This Way Comes and The October Country in King Sorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a nice, thick book to settle in with this summer, check out Joe Hill's King Sorrow. You're going to love it. It comes in at a whopping 877 pages, but not once did I think about where I was in the book. Not once did I think about the length of it. I was so involved in the plot and the setting and the characters and how they developed that I didn't want it to end. So check out Joe Hill's King Sorrow, published in October of 2025 and at every bookstore you could possibly imagine, so you have no excuse. It'll probably make your top 20, 10, 5.
Thought that comes to your let's play a word association game. I'll say mother and you say word. So mother, knife. Father, rage.